Kyle Madson, Candlestick Chronicles, pulls up on us. What's going on, Kyle?
What's up, guys?
Hey,
Man in black.
Crazy morning.
crazy. But
Jeez.
to finish what I was saying about Trey, um, the only I really believe the only reason we're even in this position is because Brock Purdy came out of nowhere and played as good as he did. If Brock Purdy was average last year and he went 500 with the 49ers, he'd probably be in some type of battle with Trey Lance, and Trey Lance would probably come into training camp as at least, ahead for QB1. Maybe he could lose the job or whatever. But if Brock was just average and the team looked average, lost in the first round or whatever, we wouldn't be having this. But like we've said from the start, at least in my opinion, I've said from the start, this is more about how good Brock was because it wasn't even an option, to be honest with you, of competing for QB1. That's how Kyle looks at Brock Purdy. That's how I even look at Brock Purdy. I said, Brock Purdy's QB1. So he's shown me enough. I'm willing to take my chances and ride with him. And that's unfortunate for Trey because all he did was really get hurt. That's it.
Kyle, what do you think about what we learned today? Sam Darnold being the number 2 quarterback, Trey Lance. I don't even think Trey Lance was named the 3rd string quarterback. I just think Sam Darnold was named number 2. And then, of course, from Matt Mayoka that Trey Lance is not at practice today.
Yeah, Darnold being named the backup was kind of what I expected, just because with the backup quarterback, you're looking for the floor, right? When that guy comes in, is he going to be able to replicate best what your starter is doing? And given Darnold's experience, I think that he's the player they believe can do that. And when you juxtapose that against Trey Lance's preseason performances, where he got better as the games went on, but man, those first 3-4 series were pretty rough. And I say that as somebody who believes that once Trey Lance starts 6, 8, 10 games in a row, he's going to really grow into who the 49ers believe he can be as a player. But I don't think they were going to have the patience for that. I think he was further behind than they might have anticipated. And that was exacerbated by the finger injury his rookie year and then a knee injury his rookie year that kept him from starting a second game after he started against Arizona. There was the injury last year with his broken ankle when early in week 2. And so I don't think they want to wait around for him. He's going to cost them $9.3 million if they keep him this year. And so if there's a trade offer out there that they think can help them this year or help them in next year's draft, then I think they're gonna go do that.
I've said a number of different times, continue to say, if it was up to me, I would have had Trey Lance as QB2. I would have. That's just what I would have done. How I would have gone about business. With me saying that, and I feel like I'm just being honest here, and not trying to play one side or the other. It would be hard for me to make an argument that in these 2 preseason games, that just with my eyes, Trey Lance looked better than Sam Darnold because he didn't. He didn't. That doesn't mean Sam Darnold looked great, but Trey kind of looked all over the place. He was like really, really bad, or he looked super sharp.
Right.
And for everybody that thinks, oh, something's done wrong, we didn't even see the practices or all the training camp. But just on these 2 games, it's hard for me to make a argument just based off performance to say Sam Darnold isn't the second best quarterback on the roster. Like we all saw the same games, man.
I get people who wanted Trey Lance to be great with the 49ers and who really believed in that, and that's fine. And like I said, I'm of the belief that if Lance ever gets to go somewhere where he'll get to play, and if he stays healthy, I think he's going to be a really good player. But like you just said, when you watch these games, the Niners can't afford if Trey Lance has to come in for 6 or 7 games in a row and he's a disaster for the first half of all of those games. You can't afford that if you're a team trying to win the Super Bowl. And maybe it works out with Darnold, maybe it doesn't, but I think the variance with Darnold is much lower. And that's what the Niners are betting on. So maybe the ceiling's a little bit lower too, but that floor is so much higher. And with this team and how they're built, that floor at the QB position is what matters. It's not about the ceiling.
And real quick, that what you said, Kyle, is something that I've noticed throughout his career, to be honest with you. That is the gift and the curse, right? He always gets better as the game goes along. But we don't always have time for you to get better as the game goes along.
Right.
You got to come out and be just as good on your first drive as you end up being on your fourth drive.
Right.
And that's something he's got to figure out.
And you can be a big believer in Lance, and you can sit here and say, because the argument is, well, if he starts 10 games in a row, he'll grow out of that and he'll become good. But that's an opinion. That's not a guarantee. I think that that's what would happen. But you could just as easily talk about his first halves and go, see, he's not figuring it out. So I get kind of both sides of it here. If I'm the Niners, though, I'm not moving him because you're not going to get anything of real value for him.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nick. Because I was going to say what Jesse said. Because Jesse was saying earlier, like, I agree with you, Kyle. I wouldn't move him, but what's the point in keeping him at this point? Like, his time here is done.
Because they've needed 3 quarterbacks in 4 of Shanahan's 6 seasons. And I would rather Trey Lance be starting a few games or a playoff game than Brandon Allen. Like, that's just, at that point, punt the floor idea out the window. Like, just give me Trey Lance in that spot, and I'll live with it. So if they're going to get a 5th round pick in next year's draft, that doesn't help them, and it saves them a few bucks. But you can trade them next offseason and be in a similar spot.
Kyle, I had a theory based on something Kyle Shanahan said yesterday regarding how the backup quarterback position battle could continue, well into the regular season. And my thought with the idea of naming Sam Darnold the backup quarterback today, might play into a situation where I use the example of Brock Purdy, getting a head injury, like Brock Purdy, getting hit hard, getting, spotted by the concussion spotter, pulled out of the game, and Sam Darnold coming in to finish the game. Should we, God forbid, have a situation where Brock Purdy gets hurt in a similar vein that Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo did last year, where they're out the remainder of the season? That's where I wonder if the idea changes a little bit. Like, we're not going to run with Sam Darnold for 10 games. This is where we're going to have Trey Lance be our quarterback. I want to stop short of saying the move today was clerical, because clearly it's more than that, because Trey Lance isn't at practice.
Right.
But my first thought was that's what it was clerical.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, but also, is there any, because I think that's the right way to do it, what you just laid out. It's what I would do. I've talked to other people who cover the team. That's what they would do, because you want to see, you've seen an extended sample of Sam Darnold. You kind of know what you're going to get. But with Trey Lance, man, if you're on your backup quarterback for 10 games or whatever, go let it rip and see what he's got. But man, I don't think that Kyle Shanahan is the kind of person who's going to deal with that. I think he is very much like, if we have a backup, that guy is who's going in, and this is going to be the offense, and this is what we're going to do, and I'm not going to worry about rotating and this scenario. And okay, if it's 3 games, it's Darnold. If it's 6 games, it's like, I just don't think he wants to or has the capacity to deal with that. So I don't think that was ever a realistic thing, because I don't have any evidence that Kyle Shanahan would be open to something like that, even if it's the right thing to do.
Something I was thinking about too, with all this stuff getting out and TC talking about they're putting it out there, and people, is there any possibility? I'm trying to think about this on the fly about the benefits to it. Is there a possibility that Trey Lance's people put this out?
I don't think they'd have the time to, given how close they were to practice. I mean, it's certainly possible.
This is my thought. He was told this morning, maybe last night, he's the 3rd string quarterback. And they were just going to go, all right, go about practice. It's not out yet. We'll go to practice or whatever. It gets out, And then the 49ers like, well, all right, well, now don't go to practice. Like, this wasn't supposed to come out. Now, stay off the practice field because now it's out
But why
there.
would you ask him to be off the practice field?
Because now they're trying to explore trade options. And you don't
why
want
I
that to
don't
come out
understand why you'd want him off the practice field though.
because you don't want him to get hurt. That was my thought. A half-baked idea.
I don't think Lance's people
no.
would put this out.
I'm guessing he was told moments before we were.
So why is he not there?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to like look at the human side of this dude. He could be devastated.
That's what, dude. If I was Trey Lance in that spot, I'd be like, you know what, my knee hurts.
Yeah,
I'm not like,
or like, I mean, Kyle or John could have been like, hey, I know this is tough. Take the day. You know, we are. You asked what benefit there could be for this. Teams could be calling. Like, that could be the benefit for the 49ers. That doesn't mean they're going to trade Trey Lance. It means teams might inquire about Trey Lance. They could see what a market looks like here at the beginning of training camp or towards the end, I guess, of training camp and make a decision. We're probably not going to get anything better than that during the season. And then they have to make the decision if they're going to get anything better than that next offseason. So that would be my guess to a question you kind of threw in there with what you were saying is, what would the benefit of this be? You get some cursory calls probably.
Yeah.
The thing worth noting, Ian Rappaport just tweeted, as the 49ers weigh options for Trey Lance, calling his hometown team, the Vikings, makes sense. Nothing is impossible when Minnesota has a backup in Nick Mullins and drafted rookie quarterback in Jaron Hall. When guys like Ian Rappaport just throw a team out like that, that rings a bell in my head.
Well, and he was the first to report this, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right.
So there's probably something to what he just wrote.
Yes, I would tend to agree. And they talked about it from what I understand. They talked about it at the Combine, the Niners and the Vikings did, and nothing really came to fruition there. So maybe he winds up going back to Minnesota because Kirk Cousins is a free agent at the end of this year, and Nick Mullins isn't it, and I don't know enough about Jaron Hall to have a take. So if maybe they love Trey Lance before the draft and want to get him in there and give him an opportunity, I don't know. But
and you know what, this is maybe I'm being too tough here. I can recognize that, but if it is a scenario where you got this news and my knee hurts, or they're telling them,
take a day,
devastated, all this other stuff. The father in me, it's like, get your ass out on the practice field. Like this, you're part of a team here. Yeah, you're not where you want to be. You're not the starter or second string. All this, get on the practice field. You're part of a team. You can't. Anybody that just gets a demotion on the depth chart doesn't get an opportunity to not practice or not be part of this team or take a day to get themselves right. Like, no, get it together. Get it together. I'm just saying if that's what happened. I'm not saying that is what happened, but that's not acceptable to me.
I disagree with that completely.
Oh, what are you talking about?
Do you have a problem with Nick Bosa not being there?
At this point, yes.
Okay. Did you have a problem with him not being there last week?
No, but that was also a contract situation. That wasn't
part of a team.
But that was
he's not
he's under contract.
Now, that's where professional sports is a little different. Get your money. This is purely a roster. Hey, you're not in the position that you wanted to be. That's not good enough to me.
I'm given how all this reporting is coming out, the 49ers exploring all options, and oh man, Minnesota. That to me says there's something substantial going on in trade talks. And
4 guys have tweeted that phrase. 4 different reporters from 4 different outlets have tweeted that exact phrase you just used.
Yeah. That's saying we're exploring trading him. Because look, they're not cutting him would cost them an extra $5 million against the cap this year and all of his $10 million cap hit next year. They're not cutting him. Like, that's just off the table. It wouldn't make any sense for a team that's strapped financially. So that doesn't make any sense. So they either keep him or they trade him. And given the fact that he's not on the practice field, how many times have we seen it's hug watch in baseball, right? Around the trade deadline. Oh, this guy just got pulled out of the game in the 4th inning and he's hugging all of his teammates. It's Before an NBA game, you see a guy pulled off the quarter. He's mysteriously not in the starting lineup tonight, and he's not suited up, and he's not at the arena because they're talking trade for him.
Right.
So that's kind of what I think is happening here.
Than him taking a day. That makes sense. Like, all right, it's out here. We're working on a trade. Don't get hurt. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Saying, I know it's tough news. You got the day off. I'm not for that. And I'm not for that if I'm Trey or if I'm Trey's father. Get yourself to get out there.
I don't have a problem with it at all.
Don't let Kenny take a day off.
You're listening to D'Lo and JC on KIFM West Sacramento 98.5 FM, KRX QHD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320. Always live on the free Odyssey app, live on 1320 TV, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Kyle Madson, kind enough to jump in with us on the fly with the news that Trey Lance is not at practice after a report from the NFL Network that Sam Darnold will be the backup quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers entering the season. Practice is underway for the San Francisco 49ers, and Kyle Shanahan is scheduled to talk following practice, as a number of players are as well. Brock Purdy is at practice today. Sam Darnold is, and Brandon Allen is as well. I've said what I've said about Sam Darnold in the New York Jets.
Mm-hmm.
He has never had a good season in the NFL. Never. There's nothing to point to in the NFL for Sam Darnold that's positive. I'm fine with him being the backup quarterback. I think he has an opportunity to show something should he actually get in the game. We're really doing a lot of absolutes that Brock Purdy is going to get hurt based on history of other quarterbacks. That's kind of the wildest thing about this whole situation. Listening to Daniel talk, it's a guarantee. Sam Darnold's going to play, and he's going to play a lot. Okay, man. Like, okay, let's relax. Most quarterbacks don't play 17 games or 16 games of the past. So at some point, Sam Darnold might, but I'm not going to. This doesn't change how I feel about San Francisco. I feel the same way about them. This is a team that can go to the Super Bowl. This is a team that can absolutely win the Super Bowl. My opinion to them on them has not changed a bit.
The thing I would fear if I was the 49ers is injury problems at the quarterback position like they've had. So let's say they trade Trey Lance and they wind up on their third string quarterback, and it's Brandon Allen going into the playoffs. And meanwhile, Trey Lance got traded somewhere where he's playing, and look, he started 8 games in a row, and it turns out he's pretty damn good.
Yeah, that's tough.
That would be that is where all of this could kind of collapse in on Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, where it's like, you've had this problem 4 out of 6 years. You knew you needed quarterbacks, and you're going into the playoffs now with Brandon Allen, and the quarterback that you traded for pennies in the preseason is tearing it up with Atlanta or whatever. I don't know.
Can I throw something at you? It's probably not fair, but I've heard this before. I've heard Kings fans say, man, it's going to suck when Marvin Bagley lands somewhere and stays healthy and lights the world on fire. I can give you a more obscure one because I was outside for this one too. I remember the Ben McLemore conversation.
Ooh.
Kings are going to give up on Ben McLemore, man, and he's going to land somewhere, and he's finally going to figure it out. Holding on to that finally figuring it out thing is tough. Like, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, and I'm speaking from Kyle Shanahan's, but that's tough. Like, I can't wait. Like, I can't. I need a solid vet to back up my very, very young, quarterback. And you need time to develop. This could potentially be a win for everybody. I got the vet I need to be a backup. We got, a draft pick back for you, and you're going to get the opportunity to go cook. If you're playing, like, no team has 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think the big thing, the difference there is, like, Bagley had chances to play, and I know he was hurt and out of the lineup and stuff, but he had real opportunities. And same with Ben McLemore. Trey Lance hasn't gotten those opportunities yet.
It's fair. Yep.
And the Niners, like I said, have needed 3 quarterbacks in more than half of Shanahan's seasons. So I think that's the difference. But to your point, if they don't wind up needing a 3rd quarterback, then they're paying $9.3 million to have a guy not suit up on Sundays.
And here's the other thing about that as well is I think a lot of the times fans, some media members, they get caught up on like I sometimes I hesitate because there are some situations where I think people just aren't using their brain, but they get caught up thinking like these people are stupid and aren't competitive, maybe even more competitive than any of us, right? And they'll look at this situation and they'll say something like Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch will intentionally do something that they don't believe gives them the best chance to win just because they don't like somebody or just because whatever. Like, I'm sure they've gone over every scenario and said, what if this happens? Or what if that happens? Or what if he turns into this? What if that? And they came back and they said, look, what's best for the 49ers right now? Not only do they have an obligation to themselves, they have an obligation to George Kittle. They have an obligation to Trent Williams. They have an obligation to Juice, to Brock Purdy, to Eric Armstead, to those guys to make sure when they sit across the table from them in negotiations or into the season meetings or whatever, I gave everything I could to make sure you had the best chance to win a championship this year.
Yep.
I didn't go on my feelings or emotions. I said, you know what? It was a hard decision, but this is best for the rest of these guys to have an opportunity. And I have to trust that they did that in this situation because they're not – I don't believe they're just going to flippantly, Trey gives us the best chance to win at QB2, but we don't like him. Let's just move on. Like, come on, man. Let's deal with reality here.
Right.
So, just my two thoughts.
Yeah, the Trey Lance thing hasn't gone down the way it's gone down because of a personal grudge from Kyle Shanahan. Like, it's just, if you want to think that they mismanaged him because he should have started right away in 2021 and they should have just let it rip from there, okay, fine. Like, I'll buy that for sure. But go ahead.
It's weird how people's memories get bogged down. Like, I'm looking at Polo saying then Kyle should have traded for a vet QB instead of throwing away draft picks and botching drafts. He didn't have a starting quarterback when he drafted Trey. The idea was Trey Lance was going to be the starting quarterback moving forward. They weren't looking for a quarterback to back up Trey Lance when they drafted Trey Lance. They were looking for a quarterback to replace Jimmy Garoppolo who couldn't stay healthy.
And you know what? To who was that?
Who's Polo?
Polo, to your point, there's two things around this situation that I don't think people pay that much attention to. Number one, they did try to go get Matthew Stafford that summer. They tried to go get Matthew Stafford.
Facts.
Detroit decided to go with Los Angeles. Number two, I believe they were in on Deshaun Watson. And
Also
then the
facts.
Deshaun Watson stuff happened. So they did explore that avenue. So and Polo, that's my guy. I'm not shading him or nothing like that. But that's how people. Oh, it's so simple. People are so stupid. They're so stupid. Why did they just do that?
People,
they did.
Can we also stop acting like the 49ers have won 6 games the last 3 years?
Right.
They've gone to the NFC Championship game twice. And their quarterback is a question mark. Maybe Trey Lance starts in 2021 and stinks. And maybe they just whiffed on the draft pick. And at that point, it's a disaster. But the fact of the matter is, like, they drafted a guy who, whether you think he's the best quarterback or the worst quarterback, they averaged 33.5 points a game when he started last year. And they went to the NFC Championship game. Like, this whole, they botched the pick and this and that. Like, you can go to the world where, okay, they keep the 12th pick and they draft whoever. Fine. But they took a swing for a quarterback because that's what you have to do in the NFL. And that swing isn't working out for various reasons, injuries and other stuff, but injuries mostly. But they've gone to the NFC Championship game in the 2 years since they drafted the guy. And now they have a really dang good team again, despite the fact that it looks like they're going to trade him. Like, what's the matter? I don't get it.
Two quick things for Jesse and Kyle. I'm stealing 15 more minutes of Kyle. We're stealing 15 more minutes of Kyle's time. So we're not going.
I'm vibing, dog.
Kyle's got a podcast to record, probably one of many podcasts on the way. I am not Ham says GMs typically draft, not the coaches. Well, that's typically how it works. Yeah. That's not how it works in San Francisco. And it's a great point by Kenny talking about Matt Stafford. Let's not forget, as Aldrin J says, I know some 49er fans still think they should have went for Aaron Rodgers. let's not forget how that draft day show started.
Mm-hmm.
That draft day show started with an appearance from Troy Wingo on this show talking about how Aaron Rodgers thought he was going to be a San Francisco 49er that morning.
Mm-hmm.
There's the report that Aaron Rodgers went to bed the night before the draft of Trey Lance thinking that he was going to be a San Francisco 49er the next day. It feels like Trey Lance might have been the last resort and when it comes to moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo, when it comes to finding who's going to, take that position. You mentioned Matt Stafford. We know that Aaron Rodgers, there's a lot of validity to the Aaron Rodgers thing. And, of course, ultimately none of that happened. And Trey Lance winds up happening. And 3 days later, Brock Purdy is drafted. Yeah. And here we are.
And with all those scenarios, the only one they had a control over solely was the drafting of Trey Lance.
Right.
Everything else maybe they would have had more control over Deshaun, but Deshaun started doing wild stuff.
Well,
and they said, and from what I've heard, they're like, we're not going to go down that road.
Yeah.
So it moved on from that. Aaron Rodgers, they needed Green Bay to agree to that, and same with Detroit.
That's an important distinction. You're talking about Deshaun Watson his final year when he played in Houston, not Deshaun Watson when Adam Schefter said, he's not guilty, it's open season.
Wild.
And the Cleveland Browns decided to throw $200 million.
Exactly.
You're talking about the year prior.
Exactly.
Before the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they were in on it. So, a lot of these times, sometimes they just, aren't thinking right. Sometimes GMs and coaches just make the wrong moves. And it's like, man, that wasn't smart or whatever. Sometimes they've explored the option that you think you just found out, that you just stumbled upon. Like, why don't they do this? Yeah, they've explored that 5 times already, and it's not going to work. They've been calling Green Bay for the last week every day, and Green Bay's not budging on not getting rid of Aaron Rodgers, so they can't go get him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it takes 2.
They've not been John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan as a duo. I'm going to just lump them together here. They've not been perfect by any means, but the roster they've built is pretty unbelievable. And for every whiff, there's a Fred Warner in the 3rd round and a George Kittle in the 5th round and a Christian McCaffrey trade in the middle of last year and a Deebo Samuel in the 2nd round. Like they've built a really shrewd trade for Trent Williams when Joe Staley retired on draft day in 2020, I think it was 2020 season. So they've for every bad move, there's 2 or 3 good ones propping them up and putting them in a position where they're going to contend for a Super Bowl again this year. So I understand that there are people who really wanted to see Trey Lance succeed and wanted him to start right away and this and that, but I've seen people on the internet like calling for their jobs and now they're on the hot seat and now they have to win a Super Bowl. Like, man, what? Yeah. That's just a tough way to exist as a sports fan. Like, I'm not going to police it, but man, sounds miserable.
I just don't agree with that.
Diana Rossini said, while the 49ers are exploring trade possibilities for Trey Lance, the front office has been shopping him for much of the offseason, according to a league source. The team never received a significant trade offer. Here's another thing when taking into consideration Kyle and John Lynch and the 49ers front office and the decision makers for this team is, across the board with personnel decisions, like difficult decisions have to be made. When you talk about the quarterback position, I mean, let's not, Green Bay just made the decision to move on from an all-time franchise quarterback, partly because he's a tool, partly because they got to figure out what they're doing with Jordan Love.
Right.
Like, they have to see what they have there. And regardless of what you decided, like, Aaron Rodgers is at the end. Whether Aaron Rodgers has another great year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, he doesn't have 12 to 14, which is what they have to figure out with Jordan Love. You had to sacrifice what could potentially be another great year, 2, 3, or 4 or more from Aaron Rodgers to figure out if you can get 12, 13, 14, 15 years from Jordan Love. That's the difficult decisions had to be made. Oh, by the way, that's not the first time the Packers did that. The Packers have had to do that on numerous occasions with, I guess, multiple Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Though I'm voting to remove the other guy.
Yeah,
that's just it's
Hulk Hogan, his ass.
It's well, I have a
just super anti Dan Majkowski or what?
I know Hulk Hogan doesn't love me, but
Hulk Hogan for 6 months. Okay. Then he was just back.
Just pretending like nothing happened. The tape was scrubbed from the internet.
Don Majkowski, not Dan. Dummy.
It's just part of the game, man. It's tough. The decisions, are tough. I don't imagine all of Green Bay was celebrating when Aaron Rodgers was traded to the Jets, but it's decisions that guys had to make. This front office made a decision. We're going to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. We're going to look for a quarterback with a higher ceiling. They looked for the Matt Staffords. By the way, let's look at where does anybody got the Rams doing well this year? Anybody think that now to credit to the Rams, they did what they were supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
They loaded up to win a Super Bowl. No, the window for them was always 1 or 2. Yeah. It was never more. They got their one, but that was it. The Aaron Rodgers thing would certainly be curious. I don't think the Matt Stafford thing would have really worked out given what we've seen. For Matt Stafford, he's tossing women off stages now.
Oh, jeez.
And that was wild.
So like we can point, they should have done this, they should have done that. Oh, we don't know how any of this stuff would have gone. Right. And they would have never known that as it stands today on August 23rd, 2023, their franchise quarterback was taken in that draft, just not on Thursday. He was taken on Sunday.
What if Trey Lance got moved? Is there a trade that you guys would be like, good trade?
For me, if they got a player back, I don't want no 5th round pick. If they can get obviously this isn't
I don't
the
feel
guy.
Like players are really even traded very often.
They're not.
Player for player.
Yeah, they're not. Say. But I'm thinking, and I'm not saying this guy specifically, but a disgruntled player like Jonathan Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get Trey with me, a guy that's unhappy in his role that can help me right now. That would be intriguing. Don't think that'll happen. I think they'll just get some kind of draft pick, but that's what I would be looking for or hoping for.
Yeah, that's what Damian brought up about Diana Rossini was just she said the team never received a significant trade offer. I don't think they're going to receive one now. I also don't think they're just going to give him away. But his value is also the highest right now because he has 2 years left plus his 5th year option. But a team would have to pick that up after next year's draft. So.
With all the chatter that's going on right now, Kyle and Damien, you can answer this too.
Thank you.
Do you think they just move on from him, they take what they can get? Because also, like you said, his value it's not going to get any higher. It's only going to go down because of the years on his contract. Do you think they say, "Man, let's move on. This is the best it's going to get this next 2 weeks"?
Man,
I don't think so. No, okay. I don't think so. That's just my opinion. I don't think they're going to move on from him at all. Just to move on from him. No, he's not. Yeah. With all due respect, he's not Marvin Bagley. At least I don't think he is. I don't think he's disruptive in the locker room or anything like that. I can't envision that. His teammates seem to really, really like him.
Yeah.
I don't think those guys who were praising the offseason he had and the workout he had were blowing smoke. I thought that was legitimate.
Yeah. Oh my God, Bobby Hill, don't play like this. Bobby Hill in the chat says Trey Lance for Chase Young.
Admittedly,
Lord have mercy.
I find the Chase Young thing fascinating. I find that so fascinating. Like, how and why? How did we get there with him?
Yeah. Injuries?
Yeah. What did he tear, his ACL?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still a freak.
And then he is.
I'd take a chance.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah,
that's a move I'd be like, all right, I see the vision. But if it's a 6th round pick, now a day, I don't think they're getting a day 1 pick. So if some team is like, here's a 3rd round pick, we're super desperate to get this quarterback in. We don't think we're going to be bad enough to get a good quarterback next year, so Lance is going to be our guy. Then sure. But if that offer was out there, it would have been out there already.
Mhm.
And I don't think anything's happened across the NFL this year that's made a team suddenly go, you know what, we need Trey Lance.
I got it. Maybe Trey Lance is exactly what Masai Ujiri's looking for, and we get OG Anunoby.
Oh, no, the conversion rate. The conversion rate's too high.
I'm just trying to, because it's nobody in the NBA that he wants.
No.
So maybe it's an NFL quarterback.
You have to send him stake in the Golden Gate Bridge and the repaired part of the Bay Bridge. You have to send him that. He gets
Is
the
OG
sponsorship on the new lights at the Bay Bridge.
is OG going to be the new John Collins?
Feels like.
Well, except he's
Which is-
actually really good. Yeah,
That's fair. Yeah.
I'm not a John Collins.
And he's
Me neither. No, me neither. But every year he's going to get traded for 10 firsts.
No, he. I think not this. I don't think this year is the last year. Wait, no, this year is the last year of his deal.
John
It's
Collins,
Siakam that's got a couple.
Yeah,
left.
John Collins signed a new deal, and they tried to trade him immediately.
The Hawks signed John Collins to a deal they didn't want to. Fine, we'll figure it out later.
Like, we liked him so much, we signed him to this deal. Give us 2 first-round picks, please.
Please. Spoiler alert.
Man.
They did not.
Memory serves. Monday was your deadline. And change subjects real quick before we let you go to work. You nervous about Bosa?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
At this point, I don't want to say nervous. I actually just wrote about this today at NinersWire.com.
How long could Nick Bosa's holdout go?
Yeah, and basically, to accrue a season, you need to be on a roster for 6 weeks. Roster, IR, or PUP, right? The physically unable to perform with. So you have to be on it for 6 weeks. So that makes week 13 the cutoff. Or else he doesn't accrue a season, which means he doesn't make any money, and he's in the same spot next year that he is this year, and he has also made $0. So he's going to come play at some point. So week 13 is like the cutoff. So I don't think there's danger of him missing a full season. But the longer this goes, the more it's like, man, why not? But I keep going back to TJ Watt. TJ Watt signed his deal on September 9th. He did a hold in. He didn't do the hold out, but Bosa's such a good preparer, I guess, or good. He's good at exercising away from the team that I think the team is fine with him being away and working out. And whenever he comes in, they'll
You
be
got an
confident in him.
A&P.
They got an A&P for sure.
He's just in the gym grinding.
Real quick, Brock Purdy, does this situation put more or less pressure on him, or does it stay the same?
Stays the same for me.
Because now it kind of feels like he's got somebody's career on his back too. Like Kyle, he has to be good.
I picked you over Trey.
Yeah, or else Kyle and John are. I don't think they should be. I'm just saying they could be gone if you don't.
But I think that was going to be the case whether Trey Lance is here or not. I think that was always going to be the case. The fact that they just outright during the offseason was like, Brock's the guy when he's healthy. He's going to be the guy. He's the starter. He'd have to melt in practice to not be the starter.
have to melt in practice.
Like that happened, man. Like that ship sailed. Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy are a thing now. So I don't think there's any increased pressure on Brock, who looked really good on Saturday, by the way.
He did.
I was kind of surprised.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, it
Let's
looked
go.
incredible. Kyle did a really good podcast, a solo podcast, Candlestick Chronicles, talking about that game that you should go check out. And Kyle's going to be back here on Friday.
Yeah, man.
I am.
For his weekly hit. Kyle's going to be back here to host the show with Kenny on Friday.
With your boy.
Oh, neat.
Rocking.
I just told him live on the air that way he can't
Hey,
no.
cancel your plans.
He's a bad guy, so he can't say no. But yeah, Kyle will be in here on Friday. Thanks for jumping on with us on short